And today is day number 1 for a really fun little it's a teaching, community building, just a little window into the wild world of creative textile recycling and working in community. So I invite you to participate if this is something that is of interest to you. Of course, you can go back and watch recordings if you're not ready to dive in with both feet right now. But I just want to start. So again, I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Crispina French. I am a textile recycling artist, activist, and entrepreneur. I run a online community called the Stitcherhood, which is Crispina's Stitcherhood Recycling Society. And this is something that we do a lot in the Stitcherhood. So I wanted to share that with the greater public and let you guys know a little bit more about what goes on there. All right, so day number 1, sun hat tutorial. Let's take this pile of used clothing, stuff that I have had kicking around. I got a couple men's dress shirts in here, button-up shirts. These are actually really great type of material to make a sun hat with. This is a nice 100% cotton shirt that is, my husband is never going to wear the shirt. He does not like the brightly colored, kind of fun little, almost like a rainbow color. It's not his style, so he gave me that to use. This is another shirt. Light colored patterns are nice for sun hats. Just think about how you're gonna wear it in the sun. And then this fabric, check this fabric out. This is like a traditional African style top. I believe it's for a menswear. And this is like a batiksed fabric. So it has a little bit more body than the men's dress shirt fabrics, and the two pair really nicely together. And you can see that the African, these are the bottoms of that two-piece ensemble. And you can see there's a little bit of those legs cut away because I've been making sample hats to show you. Likewise with this men's shirt. Again, that bright colored pattern is not my husband's cup of tea, so he gave me that shirt too. And here's the sun hat sample that I made. So I just want to let you know that the first step in our sun hat tutorial is to get your sun hat patterns. So I have listed, like I said, to start with, there's a page. I'm going to try to put this in now. Let's see if I can access this. Let's see. I'm not able to make a comment, but there are free sun hat patterns available online. I have compiled a list of 3 or 4 of them. If you want to access that page, you can go to the URL that I will post in the comments as soon as I am able, once the live part of this teaching session is over. And you can also just Google up free sun hat patterns online, which is what I did, and I kind of surfed through a bunch of them and found 4 that I really liked. And the one that I chose to use for this particular hat, this is a reversible hat. So you can see I used an upholstery fabric on top. I used the African print that I just shared with you for this side, and then the inside is all one fabric, the top and the brim. This is the brim. This is the crown, and this is the crown, and this is the side. So this is all the same fabric, and it's the plaid men's dress shirt. You can also use, and actually once you establish which pattern that you'd like, your first step and your kind of homework for today is to print out your pattern and cut your pieces. So the patterns that I have printed out are here. And when you're printing your pattern, these are 2 pieces, and then the third is you cut this. These are all cut on the fold. And when you print your pattern, you're going to pay a special attention to the directions that accompany the pattern that you choose. And you're just going to cut your pieces out. So gather your fabric, cut your pieces out, print your pattern. and then cut your pieces out. First, you're going to cut them out of the paper so they're the shape of the patterns that the shape of the pieces that you want to cut out of your fabrics. The different patterns are laid out differently. This is a second pattern that's not cut on the fold. These are laid out this way, although you could, of course, cut them on the fold. Depending on your skill level with sewing, you want to just get your pattern cut out, okay? Then tomorrow, we are going to talk more about what you do once you have your pattern cut out and your fabrics gathered, okay? So there's 4 little segments of this little mini course that I'm doing, and what you're going to do is turn your old clothing that's maybe in the back of your closet, maybe it's people in your family or your household that have pieces that are just kicking around that haven't been used in a while, and you're gonna need 2 different kinds of fabric. You can use more, but 2 different kinds to start with. And you're gonna just compile your fabric, cut out your pattern, and make sure that when you print your pattern, that it's printed accurately. That's gonna happen obviously before you cut out your pattern. So find the free pattern that you want to use. You're going to download it, and then you're going to print it. And most of the patterns that I shared have a page included in the pattern that it's a measurement page to make sure that you're printing the hat pattern accurately. One of the things that happens if you're not printing your pattern accurately is that the pieces are not the right scale, and they become kind of weird and not what you want. So if you have any trouble printing your pattern, I am not a tech person. I'm not the best person to help you with that, but my suggestion is to find a young person, a teenager, or even maybe a tween who can help you navigate the ins and outs of printer issues with making a pattern. Especially with hats, it's quite important that the pattern is printed really accurately, because each little increment makes quite a difference. You can see on this pattern, this is the Merchant and Mills bucket hat pattern that's included in the 4 free patterns that I shared with you guys on that page that I'll enter in there. And you can see that the difference between sizes is quite small. There's just a little bit of variation between what is a medium, a large, and an extra large. And when you put that on your head, the difference is quite notable. So you want to make sure that you're being accurate with your cuts in your printing. The other thing I want to just share with you is that this particular pattern, which I love, that's the Merchant and Mills free pattern that is, like I said, on that page that I shared with a bunch of folks. So the Merchant and Mills pattern is a bucket hat pattern. And bucket hats have a very narrow little brim that don't do a whole lot for shading your face, which is what I need a hat for this time of year. I love to spend time outdoors and in my garden. So what I did is I took the brim of the hat pattern that I chose to use, and I cut it. Can you guys see where it's cut here? I cut it straight across. I used a ruler and I just went straight across. I cut it, and then I inserted about 3/4 of an inch strip in here to make that brim 3/4 of an inch wider. And again, when you're talking about hats, 3/4 of an inch is quite a lot. So imagine, 3/4 of an inch like on your face. If you measure that on your face, it's a lot, right? So that gives us this brim size here, and you can model it for you. You can see that it's going to do a nice job of keeping the sun out of my eyes when I'm outdoors. So that's one. This is the bucket hat pattern with that wider brim. This is another one of the patterns that I shared. This one's made out of a heavier weight upholstery fabric, and it reverses. I made these samples up really quickly, so I didn't have time to piece the pieces, if you will. But if you are a scrap hoarder like I am, and like a lot of my membership are, you can make fabric out of little tiny pieces and then cut your hat pieces out of that fabric. So you can really incorporate like tiny little bits. And the other thing I have to say is that this project is a great project for beginners. It's also a great project for people who are not beginners, who have a really established crafting or sewing process, because it does enable you to have fun with the piecing. So, you know, if this is your pattern piece and you want to make this out of little strips of things that you might have meaning or special textures or whatever, you can, like I said, maybe patchwork you know, a bunch of fabric. So you're going to need about like 3/4 of a yard of fabric to cut your finished pieces from, and you can either use that if you have, say, a shirt or a pair of cotton pants or something that's like a nice kind of summery weight. You can use that as is, or you can patch pieces together. The other thing I just want to mention is that most of the patterns that I have shared call for interfacing, fusible interfacing. And you can use fusible interfacing if you have that available to you. If you don't, I often use just a 3rd layer of fabric. So between the 2 layers of the fabric on one side and the fabric on the other, you can add a 3rd layer to give you a little bit more kind of heft to that brim. This hat I did not do that with, and you can see that I didn't, you know, it's quite soft. The brim is quite soft. It's nice, so you can kind of ball it up and throw it in your bag, and it's not as bulky as it would be if I had used the interfacing. This hat I did not use interfacing for, and I kind of wish I did, because the brim is quite floppy. So when I put it on, it sometimes sort of hangs down like that in my face. Whereas if I had put interfacing in there, it would have just a little bit more body and tend to flop a little less. So those are my notes. So really, that is my starting lesson for our sun hat tutorial. Does anybody have any questions? I wish I could see